Welcome to the Union FC Indy Insider. The Union FC Indy Insider is a podcast to spotlight coaches, share club values, and connect with families within the soccer community. Today, I'm joined with ZYSA's and Union FC Indy sporting director, Rob Klatte. Rob, thanks for joining in today. And let me tell you a little bit about Rob. Rob is currently the sporting director at ZYSA, which has been rebranded to Union FC Indy, where his main role is to provide oversight, administration to ZYSA teams and coaches. Perhaps you've gotten an email from Rob. Perhaps you've gotten different announcements from Rob. If you've never met him or seen him, welcome and enjoy Rob Klatte and I on this episode. But let me give you the rest of his bio. He's a graduate of Baylor University. Before transferring to BU, Coach Rob competed with Palomar Junior College and Wittenberg University. Rob was the first head coach of women's soccer at Purdue, leading the Boilermakers to 17 winning seasons and 6 NCAA Tournament appearances. He was named Big Ten and Great Lakes Coach of the Year during his time at Purdue. And Rob was also the head coach at Wright State, Baylor University, and served time as an assistant coach at Cincinnati and Butler. Rob has his USSF A license and United Soccer Coaches National Diploma. Rob, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Rob, as we get in, as the excitement is in the air, there's a lot of exciting things happening at the club, which we're going to get into a little bit more. But before we get into that, we want to learn a little bit more about you, okay? What was your primary position as a soccer player growing up through the years? I know sometimes that gets a little fluid, but what was maybe that primary spot for you?
I was probably better at running than I was playing soccer. So oftentimes I played as like an outside midfielder, that type of thing,
Yes.
that role responsibility.
Yes. Very good, very good. What was your favorite soccer playing moment? Whether regardless of age, competition level, what was just a moment that stands out to you?
As a player, probably saving a shot, getting a handball, getting a yellow card, and our goalkeeper saving it. And you're going back all the way back to when I was a kid, but I just remember that moment. And at halftime, my coach was like, as field players, you're not supposed to use your hands. Yeah. So, but it was just a reaction moment somehow that sticks in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, and your team, it worked out for your team.
It worked out. I'm not sure. I don't think it worked out on the day for the overall result, but it worked out at that moment.
That's good. What's the best advice a coach gave to you in your playing days?
Work hard. If you will become who you want to be, and that'll all be through your endeavor and the work that you want to put in.
Yeah. And something I've noticed in my time coaching at the club, I've heard it said by a lot of coaches and our coaching directors, that it's not, you're going to make mistakes.
Without a doubt.
You're going to make mistakes with the ball. You're going to make some decisions that don't make sense, and you can correct it. One thing that's an expectation always is our best effort. And I love that because it's like that translates not just onto the field, off the field, different things in life. And when you're trying to encourage and motivate kids, whether as a coach or a parent, that is a pretty good little life lesson tucked in there.
Brandon, I think one of the key elements of myself as a coach and what we're trying to, as our directors and our staff, we're trying to encourage failure. And the drive to get better means that you have to be able to accept and deal with failure. That's going to help you improve. And it's that hard work and that resiliency to come back from those moments that's actually going to provide you the developmental opportunity.
And even reframing. This weekend, Coach Evan and I, we're doing the futsal sessions, right, with the kids. And a kid took it was the right choice. They took a great shot and just barely missed the goal. And they came over and said, "I'm sorry." And we're like, no. You made the right choice in the right moment, and sometimes you're just going to miss. Keep shooting.
That is wonderful to hear. That's who we are. That's who we want to be. Yeah. And I really feel like that's building a fertile ground for those players to develop, and hopefully they're getting the same input when they're going home from their parents as well.
Yes.
But as a coaching staff and as a club, that's who we are.
I love that. Favorite soccer team and favorite player?
Oh, goodness.
Again, these get controversial, I know.
Favorite soccer team. I'd have to go back into the mid-'90s and was Newcastle United. I grew up as a Newcastle United. I love the whole black and white stripe thing. Yeah. If I was going to go, Rob Lee was a central midfielder for Newcastle, so I think that. But it was the David Ginola, Alan Shearer, and Kevin Keegan coaching. They were cavalier. They were in their approach. They were just an attacking side, so that probably would be it.
I love that. What's been your most memorable moment, we've rebranded ZYSA as Union FC Indy as we move forward. What's been your most memorable time at the club so far for you?
Wow. I stepped away from college coaching to try to have the opportunity to be a better father and have a greater interaction with my kids. And probably the opportunity to be able to see my sons play, be part of their play and their development, and at the same time trusting that we have other individuals within the club, that I don't have to have that oversight specifically, and that you can watch them and have a hand in it, but at the same time take a step back and be able to watch them grow and develop.
I love that. Rob, what was your journey as a player? We know you played a little bit at the next level. What has been your journey as a player? And then how did that lead into your coaching days?
My father was in the military, so we lived in Spain when I was young, and that was my first touch in with soccer. And then we moved out to the West Coast in Southern California. I wanted to be an American football player. That was my goal, my aspiration. My father had played in college, and it was always the next year, size-based and everything. And so he was like, hey, you got in sixth grade, there's these organized soccer leagues, and this is going a long time. Danny and I are fairly similar aged. So going back, and so I got into it and I loved it. I played basketball, I played baseball, I played all these other sports that oftentimes were coach dictated. In football, the coach is telling you what play to run. Basketball, the coach is yelling, hey, you run two. And I just loved that freedom. I said I liked running. And so just that freedom to be out there and just be able to make your decisions, and you're communicating and bonding with your teammates. So that led me up through took me through high school. I certainly wasn't the best player, but I got the opportunity to then go play in college. And then when I made the transition into academia and pursuing my graduate degree, there were some club teams at Baylor when I was going to grad school that needed a coach. I was playing on a men's league team and needed a coach. And they asked me if I would coach. I'm like, I don't know anything about coaching. But you get into it and you really love the interaction. It brings you back into that sense of being part of the team, being part of something bigger than yourself. And so that was kind of the stair step going into it.
I love that. I didn't know that about you either. That's brilliant. How did you end up at Union FC Indy? You've alluded to that a little bit. How did you end up at the club? When did that happen? And kind of those events, as you had coached in the college game for like 20 years plus, right? Like that's a long career. That's a long stint. That's kind of your life in a lot of ways.
Correct. It's my professional career. Yes. Not my first professional career.
Yes, exactly.
So, going through when I left Purdue, because we didn't win enough games over my final 3 years. So when I left there, I had the opportunity to go to Butler and actually coach for one of my former players.
Oh, cool.
And so getting into and being part of the Zionsville community, because we moved our family down here, it was, my sons were playing. And so then I think my first step into the ZYSA world was rec coaching. And I was coaching my son's rec team. And so had that opportunity, and then got an opportunity to help coach some of the club teams on the side in addition to college. And then being able to make that decision of, being gone all fall for traveling with a team, and then being gone multiple weeks every month for recruiting, it was not meshing with who I wanted to be as a dad. So this was an opportunity, the door opened, and so that's stepping in. And then my role kind of within the organization has grown, and then as Danny and I kind of took over the directorships, and having this opportunity and understanding of what the club could become by rebranding, and the goal of expanding our geographic footprint and expanding some of the programming that we were offering. It's been, kind of slide into a role, door opened, you walk through it.
That's amazing. I love that. What experiences for you have shaped your coaching philosophy, whether that's, how you were coached, maybe a positive or negative thing, or things that you've been exposed to over your the last couple decades in the coaching world?
I think that growing up, there's probably as much what I didn't like in my experience as what I did like growing up as a player. Chuck Harris being the club coach growing up. He was a former Marine helicopter pilot, and so you had a very stern, tough environment growing up there. But my first step into the collegiate world was with Meredith Glynn at the University of Cincinnati. I was her assistant coach, and she valued people. And it was really, I had the mindset. I was like, what the soccer element, what tactically, what are we going to do? Technically, what are we going to do? And she really brought it back of you're coaching people. And those personal interactions with the people with whom you work, by building great bridges with them, actually empowers you to have a bigger impact in how they develop. And so that was a big learning opportunity with that. And then both coaching in college and in club, just dealing with different individuals and how they react to situations, mistakes you make, then going through a career and learning from those opportunities, going, I'm not going to make that decision again, or having moments that work out and then being able to reference those with other people. So it's been a journey, but at the same time, it's an opportunity. As Danny says, we grow, we learn every single day.
Yeah, and I think that trellis of club values that were there and now how they're being kind of expanded and makes a lot of sense from hearing your story, from hearing Dan's story, of just that whole seeing people as people.
Yes.
Not just seeing a 15-year-old kid as a player on a team that plays this position, but seeing them, and I see that in our interactions. I see that in the different from the rec side, how values are instilled, but also on the travel side as well, at the higher levels and higher performance levels of, hey, what's questions that are being asked, whether it's within a personal thing, whether it's in, do you understand what we're doing here? How's your day going? To decisions that we're going to make and be centered around the family, centered around the players, seeing them as holistic beings as opposed to just a transactional thing, which can happen in youth sports. We've seen it. We've bumped into it. We know when we like it and when we don't like it. And I really love that relational approach and hearing those stories as a parent within there, as well as a coach within the program. I love hearing that.
That's something that we're taking on as a staff, trying to instill those same qualities within the coaches that work within the programs to ensure that their families that they're touching and the players that they're getting those relationships with are having those same experiences.
What excites you the most? As we head into this new era of the club, What's just really life-giving to you? Obviously springtime and games get going and all that stuff, but what's really life-giving to you in this time and your role and your unique vantage point?
Opportunity. That's really what it is. It's opportunity for growing and progressing, both myself and the teams with whom I work, the coaches with whom I work, the expanding of the influence that we might have, the development of players to be able to maximize who they want to become, because as a coach, that's all you can do. You can push players. You can tell them where you see they can go. But until they believe those things, they're not going to push themselves beyond that. But it's really those opportunities. And I think we try to get up every single day, and sometimes it feels like it's work. But at the same time, being able to reflect back and say it's an opportunity to have influence with people who you care about, who then also trust and are entrusting their growth and development in you.
Yeah, that's good. We've talked about this a little bit, but I'd love for you to expand. What makes Union FC Indy, as we move into this rebrand from the travel program from ZYSA to Union FC Indy, what makes us a little different from the other clubs? What makes us unique? What are people going to experience? What do we aspire towards in that?
I think the thing that I've hung my hat on since I've started here in 2016 is a determination, a dedication to development. And I think coming from a coach's standpoint and a parental standpoint, development is that having an understanding that I've lost more soccer games than most people have played soccer games. So the winning and losing element, though being very competitive, that's really valuable. I also understand that if ultimately you want to win at the collegiate level, you want to win at the high school level, you've got to put the work in and develop. And in that comes risk. In that comes failure. And we've got to be able to build an environment that supports those things at an early age. And that's really something that I feel like we are dedicated to developing the players that are in our program, and not just going and looking at who else can we bring in. Of course, we want to expand the geographic footprint of the club, but at the same time, dedicated to the players that are here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's that side of resiliency with kids, right? Of helping them to navigate of their development of how to grow when there's an obstacle, as opposed to just removing that or doing this and that. What are ways that you see in the game that those kind of qualities are impacting families, kids' lives, and their futures beyond within soccer, but also beyond?
Well, probably whatever you do, you don't grow up within a silo. You are not siloing the different aspects of your life. And so if you're taking shortcuts or you're avoiding things in sport, you're probably doing the same in your personal relationships or academically. And so those are conversations we have with both when we meet our families and we talk to our players on a daily basis. It's like you're building habits, you're building structural muscle memory, so to speak, of how you deal with adversity, how you deal with opportunity. You learn to win gracefully, you learn to lose and accept that and congratulate someone who beats you. And I think those are all key elements in becoming a whole person.
Yeah. Rob, as we kind of end this episode, and I know we could unpack more, and we're going to in future episodes, which I'm excited about, what are some maybe final thoughts or advice for parents as the season starts? By the time this airs, the season might already be going for some teams and getting ready to start for other teams. What would just be an encouragement as we head into the excitement of all the changes, but the reality of kids on a pitch playing a game that they love? What's an encouragement or advice you give to some parents in that?
Well, we have a relationship with soccerparenting.com, and I think it's a fantastic resource for parents who want to improve their game and how to deal with sideline behavior and how to deal with the whole process of dealing with whether it be recreational soccer or club soccer. At the same time, as I said, we are a club that's dedicated towards growth and development. I think the parents have to understand that. And we're trying to have your children grow and compete. And within that, there's going to be both positive and negative. And their support of their children and processing that and getting through that is essential. So the car ride home, I think, would be the best thing that I could say. Think about how you behave as a parent on the car ride home. What questions are you asking? Ask your children how they enjoyed the game. What did they see? What were their thoughts after they came up to a challenge and within the game, rather than, hey, you lost, why didn't you do X, Y, or Z?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. Well, we just want to say thank you to all of you for tuning into this episode of Union FC Indy Insider. We're excited to bring more conversations. You're going to hear even more from Rob as we continue to release new episodes out. And we want to remind you to hit that like and subscribe. Throw in the comments, right there in the comments, throw the words in, I love Union FC Indy, to be entered into a drawing to win some of this new fantastic Union FC Indy gear. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.